In this week's video, I wanted to talk about something that I struggle with, and I know a lot of other people do too. And so I want to let you all know that you're not alone. I'm talking about climate anxiety. Climate anxiety is defined as the sense of fear, worry, or tension linked to climate change. However, those that suffer with it know that it is much more than that. In this week's video, we are going to talk about what it means to have climate anxiety, and I'm going to tell you a few of the ways that have helped me cope with my own climate anxiety. So let's go for a lovely walk in the woods, and we're going to talk about it. It was Mental Health UK that described it as the sense of tension, fear, or worry that's linked to climate change. I call it a very reasonable reaction to the state of the world right now, but carry on. But an article in The Lancet did a study of over 10,000 people, 1,000 from 10 different countries across the world, and they found 59% were extremely worried about climate change. 45% of them said that their feelings negatively affected their daily life. They also mentioned that climate anxiety and distress were correlated with perceived inadequate government response and feelings of betrayal. Climate anxiety is more than feelings associated with a little bit of stress or tension because of climate change. Maybe at the lightest end, but the furthest end, it can lead to panic attacks. That's where mine ended up. Now I'll tell you a bit about my story. My experience with climate anxiety started slowly. I didn't just wake up one morning and all of a sudden I had this brand new anxiety. It was a build-up over a long period of time. As I started becoming more informed of the climate crisis, I really fell into that doomerism kind of mindset, and that's something we will come back to shortly. And I just felt more and more hopeless. I wanted to stay informed, I wanted to know what was happening in the world, and I really wanted to understand my own impact. But it became an almost obsession of checking the climate clock and checking global temperature rises, reading all of the science, consuming all of the news, and it was just a constant barrage of information. This was slowly making it harder and harder every time I did check the news that I'd get anxious. Then, back in, I think it was 2020 or 2021, we had wildfires in England. And that was the first time I'd experienced anything like that. And they were close enough to my house that I could smell them. I didn't see them, but I could smell them, and I could sometimes see smoke on the horizon. And that really hammered it home and made me horribly, horribly anxious. I knew this was all linked to climate change. We were in the middle of a drought. It's just a small spark. And from that point onwards, feeling the heat of summer started making me incredibly anxious. I would have full-blown panic attacks. That involved hyperventilating, it involved sweating, it involved just that feeling of sheer panic. And I felt so unable to do anything. I was paralysed by this. For me, like The Lancet said, it did also feel like a bit of a betrayal from the government because they weren't acting and didn't care. And still don't. At the time, I was seeing a therapist and I spoke to him about it, and he really helped me get through it. So what can symptoms look like? It can be constant, disproportionate thinking about the environment and the climate crisis. It will be all that's on your mind. It will be something that you can't stop. Snapping and coming to anger at people that maybe don't agree with you on the climate crisis, that's something that I really found. The sheer panic whenever you speak about it, the being unable to stop looking at it, not putting in boundaries between yourself and the news. It's something that's constantly there, and it's almost like you can feel your shoulders tense at all times. It can get to the point where it wasn't mine, where even just feeling the heat triggered panic. It was something that I really struggled with, and as it's starting to warm up this year, I felt a little bit of the anxiety, but I think for the first time in a much better position to be able to really work on it. And I want to help, if I can, a couple of you at least do that too. So let's look into doomerism. What is that? What does that mean? And why does that make everything so much worse, especially when it comes to climate anxiety? So what is doomerism? Doomerism is a term that originated online. I don't exactly know where, but it describes the really extreme nihilism or fatalistic thinking that can come with the climate crisis or the world as a whole. And it's really easy to slip into. You might actually have a doomerist kind of thinking if you find yourself saying phrases like, well, we're all going to die, so it doesn't matter, or we're cooked, or I can do what I want because the world's ending anyway. This also lends into kind of fear and a lot of the prepper kind of mindset. It's very much like, well, I'm going to survive the apocalypse, so I'm going to start bulk buying food. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but there is a way that you can use that thinking, quite frankly, for good. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but there was a fantastic quote in a video against doomerism by Lucretia McKeevel. I hope I'm saying that right. And I have not stopped thinking about it since I heard it. And it's easier for the left to imagine the end of the world before the end of fascism. And that one quote honestly changed my whole thinking, my whole worldview, and was a really important learning moment for me. So if you struggle with doomerism, please go watch that video. It's going to be linked in the description and in the pinned comment. So go have a look. It honestly is an amazing resource. The first thing I had to do was really get out of the doomerist kind of thinking. We do that with a technique I learned in my dialectical behavioural therapy years, and that is called acting opposite. What we want is radical optimism, like hope. Just, I know this is going to get better. I believe this is going to get better. I'm going to work to make this better. But sometimes it's so hard to hold on to that feeling. So I started by acting opposite. If I found myself in that doomerist thinking, I went to the mirror and just told myself it was going to be okay. And I kept doing that until I believed it to start with. And whenever I had the very doomerist thinking, the next thing I lent into was ecotherapy. We will get back to that in just a moment, but there's another thing I'd like to touch on first. You see, because climate anxiety kept me so in my head, I realised the solutions had to be outside of that. That's why how I combated climate anxiety was making sure that things were action orientated and solution based. This isn't about denying the problem. This isn't about saying that the climate crisis isn't happening, and it's not about saying that it's not as bad as it is, because you know what? It's not great, and your feelings are valid in this. For better or worse. I don't know if that makes me feel better, quite frankly. But there are things that you can do, and taking action does help. Firstly, it's moving from me to we. Take yourself out of this and put yourself back in the community. Climate anxiety is really done in isolation. You're very alone in that, and it really can feel like that. So joining climate action groups, local eco groups, whether it's online or in person, gardening groups, anything with other people that are really focusing on the earth and the planet in a physical and tangible way. Taking part in activism was a real helpful thing for me. And you can start this in really small steps. It doesn't need to be a massive thing. But community groups can sometimes feel like really big things to get into. There's also a lot of everyday changes you can make and practices that you can implement that really do help with climate anxiety. The thing with activism and environmentalism is that it's really easy to burn yourself out. I've definitely done it. I got to a point where I just couldn't anymore. So having really healthy boundaries is so important as part of this. For that, I recommend therapy. And I know it's not accessible to everyone, but it'd be fully disingenuous of me to say that, hey, I did this all alone and it was easy. I had help of a therapist, and I learned with them what worked for me and what didn't. And I learned how to set those boundaries with myself. It's better to be a imperfect and consistent environmentalist than to be perfect at everything and burn out really quickly. Doing little acts, like for me it's taking my coffee cup as often as I can so I don't need to buy one if I want to get a drink. I have a massive water bottle in my bag, taking that. Things like that are small habits that I've built up consistently over time so they feel second nature to me. I don't need to think about them. And that's the point where you want to get with whatever habit you're trying to build. The single most important thing that helped me out of my climate anxiety was ecotherapy. What we're doing in the woods today, right now. Spending time in nature, spending time seeing when it's beautiful, when it's good, the things about it that you love. Really kind of grounding down into the earth and realizing that it is not all doom and gloom. It's not. It's very doom and gloom, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are points of beauty, there are points of light. There's a bee in front of me and I love him. There are butterflies flying around. There are points that it's really good. Nature is a very healing force, and ecotherapy is a fantastic tool. Getting out if you can once a day for a walk, going to sit in a park, even watching nature-based things at home. One of the simplest forms of ecotherapy that you can take part in is growing a garden. It doesn't need to be big, it doesn't need to be outdoors. It can be on a windowsill inside, it could be in a tiny little spot in the room that gets a little bit of sun. It can be whatever you want it to be, but bringing a piece of nature near you every day where you can cherish it, where you can nurture it, where you can really care for it, I found for me built a lot of hope and really helped with the sense that everything is awful, because I'd have one little plant in the room that's either flowering or is this lovely bright green that's doing really well, and that really helped just enough to boost a tiny little bit of my mood. I also found it taught me a lot about myself, because if the plant wasn't doing well, that meant I wasn't doing well. The plant only started to suffer when my self-care dropped, when I wasn't paying attention to my boundaries, when I was stuck in doomerism mindsets, when I really fell into those old patterns and my self-care just went out the window. That's when the plant started to suffer. And that was a way of telling me that you need to be looking after yourself. If you want to help all these other people, and if you want to actually do something, then you really do need to look after yourself. And you'll learn a lot about yourself, your patterns, and I think the world in general, about life and death and how you feel about things, from a simple act of growing a plant on your windowsill. And it really is these simple acts that are so unbelievably powerful and help so much. I spoke before a bit about the kind of prepper mindset that people get into, and I definitely was very, very guilty of this. And that was falling into this very individualistic doomer. Everything's is the end of the world, but I need to learn all these skills so that I can survive. It's not a bad thing to learn all of these skills, but it's time to shift the mindset about why we're learning them. You're not learning to grow and preserve food in case of an apocalypse so that you and your family can survive. You're learning to grow and preserve food so that if one of your friends go through a tragedy, you can bring them a hot meal, so they don't need to think about cooking. You're not learning first aid so that you can keep your family alive when everyone turns on each other. You're learning first aid so that you can help your neighbour if they fall. It's not a bad thing to learn all of these preparedness skills. They are very good skills to have, and there's a reason people want to learn them. But you don't need to wait for the end of the world to use them. You can learn these things and you can help your local community now. Do you know all your neighbours? Do you know what they do? Do you know if they need help with anything? I certainly don't, because I'm a hypocrite with anxiety. But I'm trying to work on that. It's a process, but instead of falling into this prepper, end of the world mindset that's really rooted in fear, can you learn those skills if that helps and if that makes you feel better? It certainly works for me. It helps me feel better. I like learning how to garden and grow food. I like learning how to preserve food. I like learning first aid. I like learning all of these skills that, yes, could be used in apocalypse situations. But to help my community now, to help people now, to help my friends now, to help my family now, to help my neighbours, to help people I don't even know. Humans are people. We like people, we want people, we need people, we need to be together, we need to work together. And the point where I really think it joins in with the government and the feeling of betrayal is capitalism, it's always capitalism, isn't it? It's all rooted in capitalism and colonialism. But capitalism keeps us individual, and the people that benefit the most from keeping you on your own and scared and burnt out about the climate, about the environment, and not taking action are those that benefit from you not fighting back. The oil barons that are drilling everywhere, the investment companies that are throwing money at weapons and oil and just general planetary destruction. The government that is complicit in all of that, they're the ones that benefit if you are paralysed by fear and anxiety. They benefit if you're burnt out. They benefit if you are constantly consuming and buying. They benefit from your fear. They benefit from you being stuck this way. So moving out of the me to the we to the community, participating in the gift economy, giving without expecting anything in return. If someone needs something and you have it and you're not using it, just give it to them. We don't need to hold on to all of these things and assign a worth or a value to them. If we can help, not because you expect it in return, but because you're a person and they're a person and you're a community and it's the right thing to do. Taking action has been one of the most valuable things for me in terms of combating my climate anxiety. Action in activism, action in learning new skills, action in getting outside and making sure that I'm appreciating the nature that I have around me and working to protect it. Action, boundaries is so important. Put boundaries on your social media usage so that you're not consuming as much content. Your attention is monetized. It is. So removing yourself from that endless doom scrolling, from being stuck, removing your attention, taking it away from the attention economy is a very powerful tool. I think I've said it before, I have an app on my phone called Forest that locks all of your phone until a timer's run out, and the timer grows a tree. And if you can be easily guilt tripped by trees, and if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you can, because I definitely can, then it's a really fantastic app to use, and I highly recommend it. But just taking the attention away and taking it back to yourself. I want to stay informed. I like my social media because I follow a lot of citizen journalism pages, and that's how I feel I get the most unbiased news. Quite frankly, I'm getting video on the ground of what's actually happening. But I have timers on all of my social media apps, and I have a section in the day where I look at activism related content. I don't do it all day. I don't do it every day because that's going to burn me out, and it's done that before. I have a small spot in the morning, and then I'll share a lot of activism content as well. Sharing is a really easy way to start getting into activism without taking you too far out of your comfort zone, especially if you're just starting out. Sharing as much climate information as possible, having the tough discussions. These are all things that can really help. When I put out asking for questions on this video, one of the main ones I got was, how do we have hope? We've spoken about radical optimism as a cure for the doomerism and that kind of mindset, but hope doesn't come easily. Hope is a radical and often incredibly difficult act. Some days I hope because I am hopeful and I believe that there is a lot to be hopeful for. And some days I hope because I have no other choice. I have to hope, otherwise I don't act. And if I don't act, then I am complicit. And if I'm complicit, I'm no better than those that are harming the planet in the first place. Climate anxiety isn't an isolated problem. It links into capitalism, it links into colonialism, it links into so many other issues that, as fascism starts to take hold in multiple places of the world, becomes harder and harder to hold on to the hope. But we hope because there's no other choice. We hope because we have to hope. Some days that's enough. Some days it's not. But the main thing is, if you're here, then you probably read all the science, and the science says we still have time. We have time to make change. That's why small everyday acts, you are like a stone into a pond that creates a ripple effect. Those ripples will spread, and you will help others, and others will help you. Small individual acts on their own, yeah, they're not going to make too much of a difference. But if 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people do the exact same act, that ripple becomes a wave. And that's why it's important that even though we need to hold to account those that are doing the most destruction to the planet, why we also need to do our bit. Because we can sway things. We can do better. We can be better. We can act better. If you are watching this from a country in the Western world, like me in England, we aren't going to be the people that feels its effects first. It's all the people in the Southern Hemisphere who are the countries that have the lowest amount of emissions, are the people that are struggling the most. The beautiful islands, the wonderful coastal countries that are trying their best, they will be the ones to suffer. We can't do it for us, and just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. If you're keeping informed, you know this better than most. But there's time, and you can have hope. I hope this helped some of you, any of you, one of you. That's it. If I hope this helped one of you, it does get better. If you are paralysed by your climate anxiety, I get it, I do, I really do. But it gets better. You can work through it. And you're not alone. Thank you so much for watching. If you got to the end of this, just fantastic. I'm going to finish my walk and I'm going to go home. And I need to eat. But I hope you have a lovely rest of your day wherever you are and you're enjoying some sunshine. Bye guys. Gonna climb through the woods, hope no one steals my phone. But, let's go back. There were people, so I had to get up. My hands are full and I can't clap to sync up, so honk. Go upstairs. I don't know what's happening in my script. I feel like I've gone completely off piste with this video. That was my water bottle. That was very loud. Way to practice ecotherapy every day. Take 3, I think, because it's not easy to film and walk. Don't know how vloggers do it. I feel like it's a skill that I need to practice.